Okay, today I'd like to show you guys a interesting guitar and amplifier combination. First, this is a 1971 Gibson Les Paul Goldtop reissue. The Les Paul was originally introduced in 1952 as a Goldtop, and the original run of Goldtops ran through 1958. When Gibson, dropped the Goldtop and introduced the now infamous, 58 Sunburst Les Paul. There were a few changes, during that initial run to Goldtop. In 1952, when they first came out, they had a trapeze tailpiece, and then in '53 they went with this one-piece wraparound stop tailpiece. Just actually a light aluminum piece like this. But I replaced this with this aftermarket tailpiece here that has individual adjustable saddles, so I can get a little better intonation. Then in 1955, the Les Paul, they went with the two-piece, modern tunematic tailpiece where you got the stop tailpiece here, and then the bridge similar to this one here. So, when this guitar was issued in 1971, he actually called it the Standard 58, which is kind of a misnomer because, in 1958, Les Paul didn't look like this anymore. They had the two-piece, standard tunematic tailpiece. So this was it'd be probably more accurate to call this reissue, maybe a 53 reissue or a 54 reissue, because that was the years they had this one-piece wraparound tailpiece. Anyway, it's a great guitar. Mahogany body with a maple cap that's been painted gold. It's got P90 pickups. The plastic covers for the P90, they've been embossed with the word Gibson, which is kind of cool. The covers and the pick guard and the toggle switch ring, that's all ambered to a nice color. It's not white anymore. It's bound fingerboard and body. It's got what's kind of known as a small headstock size for the Les Paul. The neck is substantial, but it's not, it's not chunky like a 59. It's very comfortable, very fast neck. There's no volute here. The tuners are, double line Clusons that work really well. Just a great playing sounding guitar. Very, very nice. I'm going to play this guitar through this amp. This is a mid 80s Mesa Boogie Mark III blue stripe amp. Okay, Mesa Boogie was probably the first company to at least popularize the concept of cascading gain, where your guitar signal goes through several preamp tubes, where you have the opportunity to crank the volume all along the way, so you can get almost infinite sustain and just crazy amounts of distortion. Kind of the Carlos Santana sound. The Mark series was introduced in 1969, and it was constantly updated and tweaked over the years. Changes in the number of channels, the voicing of the channels, the control knob layout, the voltages within the amp, different reverb units, the introduction of simulcast technology, which I'll talk about in a minute. Just all kinds of changes over the years. The Mark I was the first, like I said, in 1969, and then the Mark II series came out, and there are actually 4 versions of that: A, B, C, and C+. And that Mark II C+ amp is probably the most revered of all the vintage Mesa Boogie amps. The Mark III series, which this is an example, the Mark II was a 2-channel amp, the Mark III was a 3-channel amp, and this amp is a Mark III, which has a clean rhythm, a crunch rhythm, and a lead channel. There are actually 5 versions of the Mark III as well, and you can tell which one you have because there's a little magic marker colored line that's marked right above where the power cord goes into the back of the amp. So you got your what's become known as your black stripe, purple stripe, red stripe, blue stripe, and green stripe. 5 different versions of the Mark III. They're all voiced a little bit differently. This is a blue stripe version. It's got a little blue magic marker line above where the power cord goes in, and that was one of the more aggressive sounding amps of the whole Mark series, and it's a very brightly voiced lead channel. Sounds great. Then of course you had your Mark IV and your Mark V series. I think they're in the middle of now, so it's an ongoing thing. Anyway, like I said, this amp has got 3 channels. The 2 rhythm channels actually share the same volume and master volume controls, so that can be an issue if you're channel switching and you want them to be different volumes. So this amp has actually been modified, and there's another volume switch for the crunch rhythm that's in the back there. There are switches here, a pull bright switch and a pull deep switch. All 3 channels actually share the same treble, bass, and middle controls. However, there is a separate graphic EQ, 5-band EQ here that is foot switchable. You can click it in, so it gives you a little more control over the EQ without having to turn knobs when you're foot switching, I guess. This particular example also has what's called simulclass technology, which is a very interesting system that Mesa Boogie worked out. The way that works is there's a little toggle switch on the back, and when you got the toggle switch flipped in one direction, the amp is operating off of 2 EL34 tubes and putting out about 15 watts of power. When you click the switch the other way, the amp is operating off 2 EL34s plus 2 6L6 tubes at the same time and putting out about 75 watts of power. So it's very unusual for an amp to operate on 2 completely different kinds of power tubes at the same time. So it's kind of a cool technology, and it works well. It seems to work fine. This particular example has been housed in a custom-built walnut cabinet by a fellow named Jim Wyant, who builds custom cabinets. The speaker cabinet has 2 12-inch speakers in it. One of the speakers is a EVM 12-inch, 200-watt ceramic speaker, and the other speaker is a Weber Alnico Silver Bell 100-watt speaker. So, and this cabinet is, it's open back, and it has what's called a B-coast jack on the back, and that's kind of an interesting feature as well. With the B-coast jack, when you plug into the left side of that jack, it has 2 inputs. Plug into the amp into the left side of the B-coast jack, and with a little toggle switch in one position, you're listening to just the Weber Silver Bell, and then when you flip the switch the other way, you're listening to both speakers at once. And then if you unplug the amp and plug it into the right side of the B-coast jack, then you're just listening to the EVM ceramic speaker by itself. So you can get you can play with the jack back there. You can either go with one speaker or the other, or both speakers together. Of course, both speakers together have a resistance of 8 ohms, and individually the speakers have a resistance of 16 ohms, but the 8 ohm jack on the back of the amp can handle the 16 ohm of the individual speaker, no problem. Anyway, it's a killer sounding combination, and ordinarily, I do these videos, I describe the stuff, and then I sit down and play it, but However, in this case, I actually just released a new album, which is called Wayward Stranger, under the band name Paladin. And I actually created a music video for the title track, Wayward Stranger. So if you want to hear this guitar, you need to listen to that music video, which I uploaded at the same time as I did this video. And all the solos on that song, Wayward Stranger, are recorded with this guitar through this amp, so you can hear what it sounds like. The album, Wayward Stranger, is available for streaming, or you can buy a copy of the CD. So give it a listen, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.